All right, welcome back. In this particular exercise, this will be the first video for exercise 3 on project-specific techniques. And in these particular sets of videos, we're going to be looking at how to work with the text and type tools inside of Illustrator. It's a major component for this project of developing your poster is to generate a well-stylized title along with meaningful paragraphs and how to work with those inside the system. So we'll be addressing and looking at the different type tools as well as related panels. We'll also take a look at how to work with text in other creative fashions like patterning, which can be applied both to text and imagery. So let's get started on looking at just the type tools in this video. So over here on the left-hand bar, which we've become very well acquainted with, we're going to look inside our drawing tools section and we're going to go to the type tool, which is this big capital T. Go ahead and click on that. And this is your very basic type tool. Now I'm going to zoom in on my document real quick to give you a little bit of an example of how this tool works. Now, the type tool works several different ways, and you'll notice if you click and hold on the T, there are many different ones. So I'm going to address most of these tools in here to give you an idea of how they operate. There's a set here that's your basic type tools, and then we have vertical versions of them for the most part. So we'll be looking at the basic tools for these videos, and then and just basically tell you how they work, or they basically get mirrored with the vertical type. So with the basic type tool, it works one of two ways whenever you are working with it. You can either first just click on screen to create what's called point type, which is basically pointing and then clicking and then allowing yourself to type in that space. So we can type anything we want here, and it will simply type along in a straight line fashion across the screen until you hit the return or enter key to enter new lines. Now this is great if you are creating lines of text and not paragraphs that you need to edit. In my opinion, that's what this particular tool is best for. So, when working with the type tool, that's what I recommend. Now here we'll go ahead and do an example of it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the title that we're going to use for this piece, which is language, with the two open and close greater than, less than symbols, or open and close operators. So put the first one there, and then we're going to type in the word language, and then we'll go ahead and close it off. And that's your basic point type. Now I'm going to deselect it by going back to my selection tool. And notice, notice this is what it looks like. I'm going to zoom in so we can see what we're working with. And when you reselect text, it shows you a bounding box around it. And it also shows you a baseline that goes under the text to indicate where the base of the text area is. So this is just convenient, this little tool right here that pops up on screen. Now there are two versions of type, like I said. There's point type, like what we just did, and then there's something called area type, or type in a box. So we're going to actually define our text inside of a type area instead. So instead of just clicking once, we're going to click and drag this time. And we will, instead of just creating an endless line of text, we can now type our text into a single box, and it will stay constrained to the borders of the box area. So this is more typical of what you get when you make a text box in other software. And this is great, again, when you're trying to define text inside of a small or smaller or a specifically defined area in your design, especially with multiple lines of text. I highly recommend this particular style of text for that. All right, so those are your two basic types of text. You've got point type, and then you have the sort of area type version of it. Now let me show you something that's interesting about the area type that you won't get with point type. If you continue to type away inside this box, notice how it creates this little error right here, this red box error. that little red box actually indicates that there is spillover text or overflow text not visible on screen because your box isn't the right size. So there are two things you can do. Either A, you can simply drag the corners of your text box up to where the rest of the text appears, or if you don't have that luxury of space or you're working with it to actually create an interesting design, you can thread the text into a separate box. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and thread it into a new box. So to do that, all we have to do is actually click on this little red box that has the plus mark right here. And when you do that, I have to get it activated. It's always the trick. There we go. The direct select tool is your best friend. So click on that box and you will see that your mouse icon will change into this little shape. So this indicates that you can draw a separate box somewhere on screen to continue your text over to. So notice this, it creates a little arrow connection to tell you that these two boxes are linked together. Often this is the best, this is a quick way to also create columns of text inside of Illustrator, which can be pretty effective. So it allows you to define the size of the next box as well as how much text goes flowing over into it. So a very convenient tool, I might add. So see here, as I space this text, it joins the other box. Pretty convenient, right? That's a great benefit of using type boxes because you can move them independent of each other, but they will stay linked. So, all right. Or you can unlink them by clicking the box ends again. All right, now that's working with that particular type of box text. Now I'm going to delete these just to get rid of them off screen. And we're going to look at some of the other type tools we have. So beyond the regular type tool, we also have one called area type. Area type is a specific type version of the type tool that will convert an existing shape on screen or object on screen into an area for text to rest inside of. So it's like creating a box of text only in a specific shape. So we're going to go into our tools here and we're going to draw a shape on screen. Nothing real fancy, just something simple. So let's go to the star tool. And I'm going to draw with the star tool out here. It actually doesn't matter if it has a fill color or not. But I'm going to draw this out here. So I've got this sort of basic star shape. And then after that, I'm going to go to my area type tool. Now, when you use area type, like I said, it can convert shapes into text. Well, the way that you do it is you move your cursor over the type box and click along the path of that object. Now notice that all of the appearance attributes of that object disappeared. It's no longer green, right? But I see the outline. And I see my blinking cursor. So now, if I start typing, now my text stays constrained within the boundaries of this shape, no matter what. And so here, we'll speed up the process. I'm just going to copy all that text and start pasting it. And voila, now we have text that appears in this shape of the star. Pretty cool, huh? So this is another way that you can also work with text. This is a great way to work with text when you're actually trying to create more kind of textural kind of effect with text where it's not necessary to read it or all of it, but to get maybe the point across about an idea or something by repeating words in the background of an image. This can be a great way to use shapes as text inside of Illustrator. All right, so that's area type. Let's take a look at another type tool. The next type tool in the list is the one called Type on a Path, which based on its titling, you might be able to guess what it's used for. So we're going to actually generate a path on screen that we can put text along. So let's grab one of our pen tools here. We'll actually grab the one that's called Curvature tool this time, right above it. And I'm just going to click and define some points on screen. Notice how the curvature tool is actually a lot like the pen tool, but it will create automatic curved lines for you no matter what. So I'm just going to quickly generate this And I don't even need to complete the shape, so I'm going to escape. Now that I've got that on screen, we're going to go to type on a path. And along with this type tool, you do have to click along the path of a shape on screen. Now look, when I overlap my path, it tells me in green with a little guide helper that it is on a path. So that means that I can click right there and I can start typing. And I'm just going to paste my previous text, but notice what the type is doing is that it is following the exact positioning and angling of this line, so the text constantly flows around it in that fashion. It wraps all the way around, sideways, upside down, and then right side up again. Pretty cool. This is the effect of working with type on a path. Now, some other things you can know that are interesting about type on a path is that no matter where you start typing on it, like I didn't start at the tip, I started like, a little ways in from the edge. And that's okay because you can always change that. Notice that if I move my mouse over the beginning of the text, there's a little vertical line that pops up out of the edge of the text here where we started typing. That's the starting point or end point for the text, so I can click and drag on that to pull or change where the text starts along the line. So instead of having, so I can have it snake around either later or earlier. They also have this effect at the end so that there's a line for you to back off and cover up or make the text end at a specific point rather than it going all the way around the pathway. And finally, halfway through the pathway line, there is going to be a third line that marks the center of the text area, but this line tells you which side of the path the text appears on. So right now it appears on the top, but if I click on this and drag it to the other side of the path line, or opposite side, now the text is drawn on the inside of the path line. And so it draws it in a completely different fashion. So this is a very interesting way, again, to kind of alter your text. You can also click and drag to move or slide your text around a little bit, depending on if you have any give. Like in my design, there was extra text out here. So I can pull and drag on this to change it a little bit. And that's an effect of working with type on a path. Either way of working with area type or type on a path, the object you click on will be knocked out. In other words, all of its appearance attributes will disappear. You can't add a fill color or a stroke color to that object anymore. So a recommendation I have that if you wanted to, let's say, save like a shape that you're going to put type on, like if I wanted this star to still have a fill color behind my text, I would copy the star object before ever clicking on it with the type and area type tool, and use the copy to leave as a background, and then use the second one as the area type object. That way, you keep a copy of both handy. All right. So that's working through those tools. Now let's go back to our type tools. And the next type tools that we have are basically vertical versions of these first three. So vertical type tool, vertical area type, and vertical type on a path. So they work exactly the same, but they type in an up and down fashion. So I'll just show you one of them as an example. So vertical type, let's click on that. Notice the cursor is pointing in a downward angle, and if I just click, now I can start typing, and it types in columns. So you can kind of see that that vertical type sometimes can be helpful if you're doing, again, a single word. It may still have some indistinguishable characteristics if you're not careful, but it can also be great for creating texture on screen with your text instead of making something that you have to read. So that's working with vertical type. And again, with any version of vertical type, they all work the same way. One unique tool they have attached in here is something called touch type that I'll show you real fast. Touch type is a unique tool in that it allows you to change a single character inside of a string of text on screen. So let's go ahead and grab this first letter right here. And I'm going to select it, the letter S, and it pops up a control box around the S. So what touch type allows you to do is basically touch or click on a type letter so that you can make transformations to it. So we can do things like this, where I can scale the letter. I can also rotate the letter if I want to independently of all of its neighboring letters. I can scale it out to make it wider or just taller. I can also just reposition it so it can be above or below the baseline that all the other letters sit on. So again, this is kind of a unique and even handy tool, again, for offsetting certain letters or words inside of your design. And that all comes packed into the Touch Type tool. All right. I think we'll call it a stopping point for that on this particular demo. Again, if you have questions, email, but feel free to watch the video again or check in on other tutorials or different helps within the Adobe site. All right, when we come back together, we'll take a look at the type and character panels and move on from there. Take care.